First final of 2018, the Quiksilver Pro ready to go with two Australians that want to take out the season opener for the first time in their career. Ace Buchan, representing Avoca Beach in New South Wales, taking on Julian Wilson from the Sunshine Coast, representing Coolum Beach, and wanting to fight for that Jeep yellow jersey to be world #1 heading into Bells Beach. Joe Turpel alongside a man that knows what it's like to be #1 in the world. Coming down to this stage, Potts. What a dream start for these two Australians, but only one will take away the win.
Yeah, what a dream start. It's been one of those kind of years. A lot of upsets through this event, which has been absolutely amazing. It's just going to make the top guys really crank it up.
Quick start for Ace, just to get up and riding down the line, resetting his positions. He's done that a lot throughout the day today, especially eliminating Owen Wright early this morning. He would just check out a wave, kick out, set himself up on a better part of the bank. Ace the goofy foot there, and Julian Wilson will be facing this wave with his left foot forward. Second attempt at clinching this win. Much different conditions than what he had in the final against Felipe Toledo a couple years back.
Absolutely. More maneuver-based against Felipe. Felipe dropped a 10-point ride underneath Julian's priority, but today a very different story. You know, when you look at the performance from both these guys earlier in the day, it's kind of like splitting hairs. Both guys getting beautiful tube rides. I think the maneuvers pretty much you'd have to go into Ace's corner. Those backside under the lips were absolutely fantastic. Sharp as attack, as the boys said before, but Julian Wilson maybe with the better tube rides. So very much even Stevens coming into this final. Swell looks like it has dropped just a little bit. So those tube rides are going to be a little bit more technical, maybe not so wide open as they were earlier.
Both these surfers riding JS surfboards. JS Industries, located right here on the Gold Coast. Famous for that great partnership with Joel Parkinson that featured a world title, and that board, that world title winning board, became kind of a stepping stone for all their models to be based on. But Julian didn't have a normal off-season in prep work for another world title campaign. He was able to welcome his baby girl into the world, but he also was thinking he'd probably miss this event when he kind of felt healthy enough to give it a shot. They, JS and the crew had to rush some boards to him. I mean, starting the day of the event was March 11th. They had to drive up to Coolum Beach March 9th, 2 days, to just try a bunch of boards real fast. He kind of had to decide which boards that were going to work on the fly, and he made sense of it. He even packed a board from last year just as an old faithful just in case, but he's riding all the new equipment and didn't really have a whole lot of time to adjust. There's another look at his Instagram post, seeing that severe injury, Potts.
Wow. He won't be riding bicycles anytime soon, will he, Joe?
Oh, my goodness.
Stick to the water, boy. But yeah, I mean, it's came into this event really with no expectations, and we always talk about the wounded surfer. I mean, it's so dangerous. Why? Because you're not really, as you said, expecting to win, expecting to do well. You're just kind of trying to feel it out and get a couple of waves, and all of a sudden you find yourself in the final. So Julian has really risen to the opportunity, hasn't he? Risen to the occasion, finds himself here in the finals.
And maybe the thing helping this best start, equaling already his best start since he's finaled here before, but his mindset was on completely different things. He was thinking about his baby girl, he was thinking about his injury, and even round by round, all he's been trying to do is surf pain-free. And he's been thanking Chris Prosser, part of the WSL medical staff, for getting that pain out of his shoulder the best he can, because as you can tell, those two bones are separated, and they're supposed to be together. Crazy. Still in the final as this one's just getting started. Let's catch up with Keely Andrew now with Rosie Hodge.
Keely Andrew, in your second final of your career, you must be getting pretty used to this position now.
Yeah, not really. Yeah, this is awesome. My goal was to do well in this event, kick off the year strong, and wow, it's all fallen into place, which is exciting.
And it's been interesting to watch your progression through this contest. I think even after you went past Steph, you could just tell that you were just taking it all in, and every heat seems to be a learning curve for you.
Yeah, absolutely. Every heat I've got something to learn, and it's really cool that we get to surf out here, and it's such an eye-opener surfing waves like this in competition, and yeah, it's really great for women surfing, but yeah, just learning and loving it all along the way.
And making the final of the first event of the year with a position to take first on the rankings.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I wasn't really thinking about that. I was kind of just focusing on making heats. But yeah, I mean, coming away with a win would be an absolute bonus. I'm just excited to get back out there and hopefully get some more barrels.
Keely, will let you prepare for the final. Well done.
Thank you, Rosie. Great to hear from Keely Andrew, her second final appearance already on the championship tour level, her first ever here at the Roxy Pro. She finaled at Lower Trestles last year as runner-up to Silvana Lima. We took note of that because that was a new final. If you looked at final appearances the last few years, you weren't seeing Silvana or Keely in there, and that was just a big game changer of the tour. Keely was happy about that performance, but we noticed when she beat Stephanie Gilmore the other day, she just was all confident. She was still keeping her game face on, preparing for finals day, and probably knocking out the biggest favorite in these conditions in Sally Fitzgibbons.
Yeah, well, we kind of all picked Sally really as the one with the experience, as the one that's been there before and is going to rise to the occasion. But Kira, what a tricky surf spot. I mean, it's a lucky dip. There's a lot of rip going along, and you just got to try and find yourself in the right place at the right time. So Keely did exactly what she had to do and finds herself in the final up against Lakey Peterson, and that should be coming up right after this, Joe.
Lakey Peterson, back-to-back finals in the Roxy Pro. Keely Andrew getting excited, now catching up to Buck, and he gets picked up by the foam ball and flipped over the falls. Wilson on the next one. Big section, he pulls in. It's wide open. Wilson sees the spit and comes out to the bright sunshine here on the Gold Coast.
Wow, Julian Wilson backdooring an incredible wave right in front of Ace Buchan. Ace Buchan went over the handlebars on the wave before. Julian, what a wave to start the final, Joe.
Unbelievable. Strider, I can hear you loud and clear. How are you feeling?
That was incredible, you guys. That was, I mean, in my book, a 10-point ride all day long. He actually had to duck under a section and then got right around and got underneath the real meat of it and just stood in it. And then he realized he was coming out, and inside the barrel just went, oh, yeah. It was just incredible to watch. It was like one of those moments where you just know it. Oh, so sick to watch from the water.
Thank you, Strider. We're looking at the vision that you saw. That first section looked so heavy and mutated. How did he make it?
Absolutely, by just pure, he was watching the lip line underneath and looked up at the lip and realized he had to duck under the first section. Then the perfect part of it just folded over him. He was just standing so perfectly in it. It just kept running, and he could see the exit. It was wide open. It didn't have any warble in it, and he came flying out. He kicked out just like looking back on that is what we're talking about.
Good man, Strider. Potts, what a dream start for Wilson.
Wow, we talk about backdoor pipeline. That was a backdoor section that Julian Wilson, very similar to his win at the Pipe Masters, utilizing that section right in front of Ace Buchan. Ace Buchan had front row seats to that one, came out with the spit. Oh, what a feeling. And yes, that is going to automatically go right up into the excellent range and very, very close to a perfect ride. Joe, have a look at that.
A 9.93 on Julian Wilson's opening ride of the final. Pressure quickly on Ace Buchan. 5 judges on the panel. We know how tough it's been to get a 10 this year. A few 10s thrown at that one. And a couple of 9.8s, 9.93, the second best score of the season so far. And Wilson with a severe lead right now with 29 minutes to go.
Yeah, you know, and if you go back to Ace's wave, had he made that drop, he was looking at a fairly good score himself, but unfortunately going over the handlebars, and oh my, he turned around as he came up and went, you've got to be kidding me. Julian Wilson standing in probably one of the waves of the day. 3 10s from 3 judges and 2 9.8s, averaged out a 9.93. Well, not a bad way to start the final here, Joe.
So incredible on that read. Thinking that he'd miss this event with a shoulder injury that's pretty severe. He talked about the pain he had after his round 3 win, and even after the quarters, just saying how he's just so happy that he was able to get this shot, focusing on just making sure he's healthy. Just reminded me of Tyler Wright last season when she hurt her knee. It's almost like her focus got to change on something different. She got to really think about herself, her body, not worrying about rivals or anyone else or numbers. She got to just be in a different space, and I felt her just breeze to that second world title at the end of the year.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you know, injuries are funny things, aren't they? They kind of make the athlete focus a little bit more, and I don't know, all the other senses are overloaded and just heightened, so to speak. So, you know, Julian Wilson coming in here. Here he goes again, Joe.
Wilson backing up the 993, back in the pit. Quick barrel as he spit out. Frontside wrap, even though that was a much smaller barrel, he's feeling the rhythm. He knows just a quick completion there puts Ace Buchan needing 2 new waves, comboed early in this final.
Well, I mean, you know what? There's still plenty of time, though. 27 minutes and 50 to go. So let's not underestimate Ace Buchan. I mean, this guy is amazing. He's a very smart competitor. He's got all the tools. He's got all the weapons necessary to get himself back into the mix. So he's got to stick to his guns, stick to his game plan. He can't control what Julian's going to do. So what he's got to do now is really focus on, number 1, wave selection. Number 2, completing those rides and putting scores on the board.
The thing is, Ace Buchan's so intelligent. One thing when you bring up previous matchups with Ace, he remembers all of them. Kind of like yourself, Potts. You finish a heat, you remember every part of it. And the tough part of losing is sometimes you just want payback immediately. Julian Wilson has taken out Ace 7 straight times, going all the way back to 2011. So he's on a hot streak against Ace. Ace had 1 win before that over Julian way back in the day at Jeffreys Bay, and ever since then, it's been Wilson taking wins, even reflecting back on a Pipe Masters semifinal. We saw Julian win that, then win the whole event.
Yeah, let's not get too carried away, though. Plenty of time remaining, and it is the first event of the year. But let's face it. I mean, Julian Wilson. When I saw Julian as a kid, as a wild card here at the Quiksilver Pro on the Gold Coast, I kind of said, well, this guy's on a crash course with the world title. Since then, he hasn't done it. He's had some close calls. He had some bad years. But in the mix, he's won some incredible events. He's put on some world-class performances, but just maybe not consistent enough. Could this be Julian Wilson's year?
Definitely feels like it. If he's starting this strong, he's had all those ups and downs behind him. He's starting his beautiful family, and he's really proud of that. He's inspired by everyone in his family, including his mom and dad on hand watching this go down. Both brothers watching all the action of the Quiksilver Pro. It means a lot to the crew driving down from Coolum Beach. As you see Wilson on the back of the jet ski, just S-ing their way, picking their route out the back. Numbers in. Remember, Wilson, 9.93 start to a 5.17. Ace Buchan out the back, holding down priority. And looking to put himself back in the seat.
Yeah, I mean, how hard was it for the jet ski to get back out there? So you can only imagine how difficult it is to paddle out on your own steam. It's a pretty radical wave here. You get swept down the coast pretty quickly. So you've got to kind of find those waves pretty quick before you move out of the zone. Ace just needs to stick to his guns. And what Micro always says, I mean, Griffin Colapinto pretty much hit the nail on the head as well. Go out there with your plan and stick to it. And, as I said before, Ace cannot control what Julian does, but what he can control is his own performance, and that's what he's got to focus on right now. Block everything else out.
Ace Buchan seems like a guy that can channel that beautifully. This is his 4th final appearance in his amazing championship tour career. And he's pretty good at closing. His first 2 finals he was able to win. First final he didn't win was last year against De Souza and Sakurema. But starting off with a lot of positivity out of the gates. His best start by far on the championship tour. Wilson back in the pit, off the ski. Makes it. Miss hit on the finish. But every time he takes off, he's making the barrel pots.
You know what? I know his shoulder's probably killing him, but at this point in time, the adrenaline's pumping after that 9.93. I guarantee you, he's feeling no pain.
Pure adrenaline. Pure excitement for getting a second chance at this final, for getting a chance to throw on the Jeep yellow jersey, be number 1 in the world, heading into Bells Beach. That would be a first for Julian Wilson in his career. 24 on the clock as we expect Ace to answer back, representing the Goofy Foots and keeping that tradition alive for the last few seasons, representing Glenn Micro Hall and his Surf Academy, getting the torch pass from Wilco, back-to-back finals the 2 previous seasons. Owen Wright winning last year, part of Micro's crew. Now Ace making it official joining forces, but he's always been one of his best friends growing up on the same beach. So thinking about 23 minutes, a guy like Ace being a tactician, what's going through his mind?
Well, what's going through his mind is he's got to try and find a wave. He's got to get himself back into this heat. I think job number 1 right now is for Ace to get himself out of that combo situation. So At the moment, 15.15 required. And that's a two-wave total. You can't roll the dice on one wave and get get that score maximum points for one wave, obviously 10 points. So first step, get himself out of the combo, get that confidence flowing back, and try and maybe sort of get Julian out of his comfort zone, because right now he looks super comfortable.
Ace Buchan, a 2018 Corona ambassador. He's taken the Corona Parlay plastic-free pledge. You can make your pledge at Snapper at Casa Corona. Ace, an activist, always giving back. He inspires the youth and also wants to inspire people to be plastic-free. We also encourage that. And it's an education process. You know, a few years ago, people maybe weren't aware of our oceans being in the trouble that it's in. So it's such a great message to pass on. Get anything you can do to avoid those single-use plastics. Ace is on board and checking out this wave coming through with priority. Late takeoff. Air under the board, stomps it. Unable to pull in on the takeoff. It's going to just shove him down the line. Now slamming on the brakes. See the spit, and Ace comes out.
There you go.
Ace Buchan, so cool and calm, getting shoved down the line. He knew there were still some points on the end section. Slammed on the brakes backhand. Challenging position to do that as a goofy foot. Saw the spit first is always a good sign, showing that Ace was as deep as he could have been on the end section.
And what a tricky wave as well. I mean, nothing did not cooperate from the get-go. You could tell he was looking to get in right there, but obviously it was crumbling, so biding his time, waiting for it. Now he slows down, hits the brakes, grabs the rail, pulls in nice and deep, and as you said, that thing unloaded and just snuck out the bottom of the wave before that thing shut down. So perfect timing, perfect positioning right there for Ace Buchan. Needing anything over a 5.10 will get himself out of that combination situation. And then things will start feeling a little bit better for Ace Buchan. Still plenty of time remaining. 21 minutes on the clock.
Ace Buchan getting the lift back and feeling a bit better, because remember, Julian's 993. Ace had to wear that on the head after going over the falls on his first attempt. You saw Ace's board tombstoning in the foreground when Julian was standing straight up in the pit. So that got him fired up to make a comeback. Last score should break that combination, so he should be able to turn it in a single wave with the amount of time we got in the final.
Yeah, and with the quality of surf that's coming through, I mean, every now and again there's a perfect wave, just about to hit the bank. It's just about being in the right place at the right time. So first step that Ace needed to do was get himself out of that combination situation, and he's done that, Joe.
A 5.9 for Ace on the comeback. Now needs a 9.21 to catch Julian and break that losing streak he's had in 7 different events. They've had some great battles in those non-elimination heats, and Ace has won quite a few of those. There's a classic I remember back at Jeffreys Bay where Ace went into this heat with Julian and Jordy. All the picks were for Julian and Jordy maybe to win the event, and then Ace just locked in a dream runner at J-Bay. Got a 9.87 to send Julian and Jordy into round 5. As we know now, one of those guys would have been knocked out in third, which is that new format that we got to witness early in the event.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I absolutely love this new system. It just puts so much more emphasis on that round number 4. Have a look at this wave from Julian, driving deep in the barrel. Perfect positioning. You can see staying high, trying to trim high. That thing starts to get a little almondy, and the board comes flying out of the barrel, but without Julian attached. So not a big score. That won't change the situation. At the moment, 9.21 required by Ace Buchan, so he's got to be feeling a little bit better. Now he's just got to start building on it. You know, we've seen in the past how heats can take on two sides, where one surfer gets all the momentum in the beginning and then his opponent starts coming back towards the end, and that's what Ace has got to start doing.
Strider in the water now for this final. Waz, you see anything showing that Julian might be in any pain right now?
You know what? I'm watching Julian Wilson. I've been watching him, after his waves and what happens to him and how he approaches the ski. He duck dives. He's actually just jumping off and letting waves roll over him, and that's just because of the pain that's in his shoulder. So you can imagine what he's going through in the lineup, but with waves like this coming at you, not being able to duck dive, he's having to take some serious pain going through the motions and getting to that jet ski.
Thanks for the insight, Strider. Yeah, you think of a duck dive, that motion, it just directly hits that shoulder injury. So Wilson, unable to do that, just has to wear this set on the head.
You know what though, Joe? I'd be throwing my board too, with good shoulders.
You're right. There's not a whole lot of room underneath. Late takeoff. Perfect drop, Wilson into a closeout. Oh my goodness, that was a lot of water on the head of the former pipe master.
I mean, he's not holding back, Joe.
Ace's turn. Little setup work, pulls in, disappears, and comes out. Sets up the backside hack down the line. Clean motion there for Ace, and he's out of there. Remember, he was trying to break down a 9.21 for the lead. Meanwhile, still eyes on Julian as he wore one of the heaviest sections right on the head. Both these guys are solid in the heavy water waves. Both have accomplished wins in Tahiti. Both have made it far at pipe. Wilson winning, but Ace, couple of semifinals in his career there. And you know he's just anticipating a huge answer back. Buchan is one of the best backside tube riders in the world, and he finally has the stage to prove it here in competition.
Yeah, both very popular surfers here in Australia, and I wonder if Strider can tell when these guys take off who gets the most cheers. I mean, who the crowd is really barracking for, because, as I said, both these guys are well loved by the crowds here in Australia.
Sometimes the world's best just hope they get the conditions to show what they can do. It's sometimes just up to Mother Nature. Maybe they get the off heat that doesn't prove that. It's kind of like early in Jeremy Flores' career, before he got those code red conditions. There was people that knew his reputation, and once he got to prove it, everyone was kind of saying, I told you so. This is what this kid does on an everyday basis. So for Ace, representing the Goofy Foots, he's a great example of that backhand tube technique that's often just getting thrown towards the regular footers just because of the venues on tour.
Yeah, I remember seeing Jeremy when he was a mini Grom in Cabreton, and I had this little Grom search event, and he was charging as a little kid, and right there I knew the writing was on the wall that this guy was either crazy or very gutsy.
Yeah. Ace and Jeremy had a classic matchup earlier. They had a lot of history together at this event. This was Ace's last.
Well, a beautiful little check turn there, mid-face, grabs the rail, comes out, but this is what Ace does so well. That turn right there, he gets that beautiful snap and a little bit of drift, puts a bit more into it, and a nice score. So he's chipping away at that score. It was a 9+ ride required, and now that requirement is slowly coming down, which makes things look a lot easier for Ace Buchan, Joe.
Last of Ace, 6.5. Now needs an 8.61. So that's that. Head on Ace's shoulders, thinking through the system. He identified a wave to break down that requirement. He understands maybe he won't get the bomb that Julian got right out of the gates, but he's putting himself in a much better position to maybe steal this one.
He's surfing himself into rhythm, and that's what's happening right now. 5.9, 6.5. I mean, what's going to follow?
Locking in now. Little air drop for Wilson. Now packing it, slamming on the brakes. Really deep. Comes out without a problem. An absolute tube shootout. And Wilson is giving the fans everything that they want in this final. 9.93. Got a 5.17, which was his backup. Even got a 4.17, still making barrels. Then just decided to pull into a beast. Still in form and rhythm. We'll see if that improves his total out front.
Yeah, well, he's got to keep the pedal to the metal. I mean, there's no relaxing. 9.93, yeah, great. That's a good score, but at the moment his backup's only a 5.17. So Ace now within striking distance. So Julian needs to crank it up. Comes around the section, hits the brakes, slows himself down, and comes out nice and clean. And then that's going to be the difference, I think. Ace has been coming out of his barrels and doing those big backside hooks, so Julian needs to kind of answer that. He needs to show the judges that, hey, I've got that in my game as well. Look at this barrel for Julian, standing nice and tall. Comes out nice and clean. And that big swooping maneuver. Stays nice and low on his board, doesn't he? That low center of gravity. Keeps those fins engaged, keeps that rail in the water, and makes those turns look really dynamic.
Really impressed with Julian Wilson's form and flow, especially reading these barrels here at Kira with that injured shoulder. Numbers still coming through from the last. 13.44 before we decide our champ and our new world number one. That will be on top of the Jeep leaderboard. We'll have some rookies really high up there named Tomas Hermes, Griffin Colapinto heading into Bells Beach. 13:25, Wilson setting himself up out the back, still with a massive total out front. We'll continue with finals day right after this. We are witnessing the changing of the guard here in 2018. We look back at history and some legendary performances come to mind. Mick Fanning surfing in his last event at Snapper Rocks was an emotional one for all of his fans. He's a two-time champ out here. He's been in a lot of finals around the world. Three-time world champ, calling it quits. Parkinson has won this event a couple of times. Back in 09 was brilliant. He had that crazy final as well with Kelly Slater at Pump and Kira conditions where he finished runner-up. Taj Burrow, one of my all-time favorites to watch at the season opener. He just surfed on rail, would blow his whole board out. He kind of defined high-performance surfing for more than a decade, basically 2 decades of hi-fi Taj. And a lot of times that would take him to #1 to kick off the year.
You know what I've noticed about that graphic? Winning makes you pull a funny face. It's such an emotional thing that you can't control yourself, and 9 times out of 10 you pull a really funny face.
Oh, it's true. It's all real. It's stoic, and the magic of Kira continues to pull us back in. Final still with 11 minutes. Big story of the changing of the guard was more recently we've had new champions. We had the Felipe story in small conditions at Snapper. That was the year the WSL had to extend the waiting period for an extra day because we didn't have much of a forecast.
9 lay days in a row.
That's right. Then we had the Wilco era, the emotional comeback to victory for Owen Wright. And now this, Pump and Kira for a final. Julian Wilson once again beating multiple sections. And that thing was just impossible to make.
Wow.
Absolute racetrack. Down the line is Ace Buchan making it. Buchan looking to come back and somehow sneak the exit. He pulls it off. Once again, Ace finds a space to get the completion. When that thing was just bending away, it almost looked impossible.
Well, that was the same wave that Julian was on. So, and I'll tell you what, you need something special, Joe, because Julian dropped another good score before we went to that graphic in the break and, put Ace back in the combo situation.
It was a 7-5 for Julian. The combo went back to Ace, meaning he needs 2 new waves. So that was a critical ride for Buchan. He could forget all about the 5-9 and 6-5. It looks like he did that. Incredible performance.
Well, it's going to be interesting to see because he kind of was going away from us. So see if we can get an angle on it that makes it, gives us a pure view on how deep and how long he was in the barrel. He's going to need something in that 7.5 range to get himself out of that combo. Every time Ace puts a foot right, Julian seems to just answer back with something special, Joe.
Let's see what happened to Julian's first.
Oh, watch this wave. I mean, these are the ones you wanted, Kira. Those big, thick, deep, chunky ones that just, look how dark it is inside that barrel. And then Ace takes off, slides into it. A little bit of a pop, grabs the rail. Perfect positioning for Ace Buchan. Nice clean barrel for him. And he comes out the end, but then hits the brakes again, pulls into section number 2, right down the bottom, and somehow sneaks out of the end of that one. The crowd go wild for Ace Buchan. 7.43 or better gets him back into the heat with only a single wave required. But at the moment, Ace Buchan just seems to, as I said, Joe, every time he gets himself in a good position, Julian answers right back at him.
What a great battle here for the final, the first final of the season. What a great mission to pull the whole contest down to this sandbag called Kira, where it all started from the original Cooley kids. PT, Michael Peterson, Wayne Rabbit Bartholomew busted down the door to create what pro surfing is today. Rabbit on hand for finals day. Was just loving the composure of these barrel riders, seeing this youthful act enter finals day in the quarterfinals with 3 big rookie names still left in the draw.
Yeah, we had Rabbit in the booth here earlier today talking with Pete and Ronnie, and he was saying how it's almost there. It's almost back to how it used to be. There's sections of it that kind of almost resemble what it used to be. So you can only imagine how radical this wave was if it's only sort of almost, halfway as good as what it used to be. So as the sand starts to draw off and those rocks on the inside, there used to be a lot more of those exposed. And he calls it the elbow. Once you get past the bus shed, it sort of bends right in, and that's the section where it used to go absolutely square. So this place starting to find its way back to how it used to be.
Should have been here yesterday.
Oh my gosh.
It was pumping. 8.6 for the last of Ace Buchan. Out of the combination. Now needs an 8.84. Wilson up. Feeling the pressure. Stalling. So casual in the pit. Wilson beating multiple sections. Can he pull off a miracle? And Wilson ends up going down.
Oh.
Every fan on the rocks there holding their breath because he's pulled a couple of dream runs. There's that example of just having to let go of the board, let the whitewater roll over his head. That shoulder just hurts way too much to try to push under all this power. Let's have another look to see how close he got here, Potts.
Oh my gosh. I mean, there we go. Julian inside the barrel. Now he starts to drive, needs to pump. I mean, it's difficult when it's quite a tight barrel like that. Staying high and then the whitewater just engulfing him. It was a very difficult tube, as you can see, starting to bend a little bit, so it wasn't wide open. And as that whitewater filled up the tube right there, just kind of took his board away from him. So unfortunate for Julian. I thought he was going to come out of that. Why? Because Ace just got a good wave, and generally Julian answers right back.
Oh, they've got such a great history, a great rival. When it comes to competing, they love to push each other to the end. They've been in key heats around the world, but getting to share a final together is huge. For Wilson, he's been in 10 previous finals around the world. Watching Ace now look for the answer. Spits behind him, slows down, and it's shoving him for the completion. I think Ace and Julian are loving their job today.
Can you believe they're getting paid to do this?
This is that dream just realized. When you're hoping to score with one other person out, $100,000 on the line, 10,000 points on the leaderboard.
Wow, look at that. That was unbelievable for Ace. I talked about earlier about how you don't really have an advantage standing with your left foot forward here at Kira. It all comes down to the individual. I mean, these guys are so good no matter which way you go. Ace is getting nice and low on his board, coming out after the spit, after the fact. So is that going to better his 6.5? He needs an 8.84. I don't think it's as good as his 8.6, so I think he's still going to need another wave.
Still keeping him in rhythm, like you said, making barrels. So that's going to add to his confidence. And when you see Ace start looking back at the crowd on completions, you know he's building that energy. You got the fans right on the cliff. The waves are pumping. This is what it's all about. Scores coming through. The panel right there with you, Potts. He's still going to need an 8.84. Wilson now holds priority. Is defense going to come into play when the waves are this perfect with priority?
Well, I don't think Julian needs to play defense. I think what he needs to do is just get barreled. I mean, that's what he's going to be looking at. He's going to be looking at bettering that 7.5. I think he needs something up into that 8-point range. As we see Julian, have a look at this thing. I mean, just that is as thick as it gets right there, driving through that barrel. Oh my gosh, and then Ace slides in. And this was Ace Buchan's 8.60 double barrel. Comes out of the first section, pulls back in. Very similar to Griffin's wave earlier in the day, which scored a 10-point ride. And Ace comes out, says, what do I have to do? It was an 8.6. Great score there, though, for Ace Buchan.
So impressed. Ace Buchan was ready. He was watching Julian closely. Once he realized Wilson was going to go down, he was ready to whip it and pull right in under the hood.
Joe, I didn't look at the priority situation there. Did Ace have priority or did Julian?
Good question. I think it was Julian's turn.
Right, okay.
And Ace was ready down the line. We'll double check that. 3:10 on the clock.
I got so excited I forgot to have a look and see whose turn it was.
You're allowed to. When the waves are pumping, Potts. You've surfed finals out here to great success. Having heats with Goofy Foots, realizing that it's fair game for every stance on tour. This is the section of the bank you want to surf in, and after 2 decades of season openers, we've realized it doesn't happen every year.
2 minutes and
Oh my gosh.
Even that one rolling through underneath is absolute perfection. Remember, Roxy Pro Final coming up next. Keely Andrew takes on Lakey Peterson. And it'll be another tube shoot out to decide our #1 in the world heading into Bells Beach.
Do you think those ladies are fired up right now watching this?
Absolutely frothing.
Oh my gosh. And you know what? I love the fact that we're down here at Kira. It's given the ladies an opportunity to show their stuff. I mean, we saw some good barrels earlier, and you know, I think they're learning as they're going. We saw the same thing happen at Cloudbreak, where everyone's like, oh my gosh, we're going to send the women out there, and it was 6 to 8 foot, and they absolutely charged.
Big takeoff, and going down hard is Wilson. And this freight train of a racetrack will just go all the way down the sandbar here at Kira. Ace with priority will now pick and choose wisely. It might come down to one more opportunity for Ace with the time on the clock. Trying to break that streak that Wilson has on him. What was Julian thinking here, Potts?
Well, a little bit of a free-fall drive, kind of caught that outside rail and goes down. I guess we can forgive him for that, but look at the wave that went unridden. Was that another perfect score? Look at this thing's turning itself inside out. Julian could have been in there. Then it starts speeding up. I mean, still going as far as I'm concerned, but then maybe that section there could have just clamped on him, but mind surfing that, I mean, you could have almost come out of it.
What a wave. It looks cartoonish, Potts.
You know, when you're a kid at school and you draw those pictures and you have a stick man standing inside the barrel, I mean, that's
based on this
pretty
spot.
much, yeah.
We're down to the final minute. Ace Buchan has priority. He's chasing an 8.84 to take this one out. Julian Wilson looking for his first win here in his second attempt in a final here at the Quiksilver Pro Gold Coast. Completely different conditions than what he had against Felipe Toledo back in 2015. Wilson knows how tough it is to close out finals. He's had finals at Lowers. He's had finals in Fiji. He was in that Owen Wright heat where Owen had 2 10s. He's ready to close this one out, officially wear the Jeep yellow jersey to be #1 in the world. We're down to 20 seconds, Potts.
How good is that going to feel, Mr. Wilson? 15 seconds, just under 15 seconds remaining. Ace Buchan still searching the lineup for an 8.84. Sets approaching the lineup, but I think it's going to be too late as the clock winds down, Joe. He now realizes he is the new world #1.
Julian Wilson is your 2018 Quiksilver Pro champion and your new #1 on the Jeep leaderboard. Wilson wears yellow heading into Bells Beach and enters the title race officially. Beware of the wounded. He's got plenty of time to heal up and get ready to go. But what an emotional moment for Julian. How sweet it is to return to a final with unfinished business and finally close it out.
Maybe a little bit of dad power right there for Julian Wilson. Unbelievable performance from him. A couple of close heats along the way too. There was that Mikey February heat where he just snuck by. Mikey February needed a 3.2, got a 3.0. And from then on, he never really looked back, did he? Just realized his opportunities, took advantage of the situation, and just went for it.
And then you got to see the competitive fire out of Wilson, why he'd surf with an injured shoulder. When he heard that February didn't get the score, he let everything out. You could hear him, a big fist pump. And that was early stages of the event in round 3. Julian Wilson enjoying this ride. And these are the ones you always remember. When you win the event in pumping conditions in front of a heavy crowd on the Gold Coast. Julian Wilson, your new #1 in the world, has just taken out the 2018 Quiksilver Pro. Coming up next, Lakey Peterson and Keely Andrew settle the score in the Roxy Pro Final. Celebrates. His brother's on hand to support. Seb on one side, Bart on the other. will take the responsibility of the chair.
Watch that shoulder.
Did all the hard work in the pit. There's so many people that want to celebrate. Andy King, part of Surfing Australia, a standout ripper himself. An all-Aussie final, and Julian Wilson with ultimate dedication to take the win after 10 previous starts at the Quiksilver Pro.
I can get down. Yeah, put him down here. Yeah, go. Down here. Thanks.
Ethan! Got him.
Julian Wilson's 4th win of his career. And now your new #1 in the world, standing right next to Rosie Hodge.
I am just astounded by you, Julian. Every time that we caught up in the post-heat interview, you could tell that you had to put that pain aside and dig a little deeper, making it all the way to the final. Incredibly proud.
Yeah, I mean, my #1 competitor this last week was myself, and testing myself and figuring out where I could go and where I couldn't go, and that took up all my time. So it was just I was just competing with myself the whole time, and I was lucky enough to get some good waves come my way, and I was able to surf pretty well, and yeah, I can't believe I've won it.
Last year you finished up in 3rd place, suffered that mountain bike injury. Now you're taking out a win in the first event of the year. Are you finding that the boundaries that are maybe set up for yourself are being smashed?
I've learned a lot about myself this event, and through this injury and the birth of my baby girl Olivia and my wife Ashley. Honestly, watching the birth of my first child gave me an unbelievable strength to just suck it up and come down here and do what I needed to do. And I think I got huge inspiration from my wife and the whole experience. So I got to thank my wife for that.
And what about heading into Bells as the Jeep ratings leader?
Yeah, that's exciting. I've never worn the yellow jersey, but it's the start of the year. I'm happy to have a better result in Australia than I did after all the events in Australia last year. So there's a massive positive in that. And I mean, I just go to Bells and chip away again and work my way through this injury. And I've got to thank Chris Prosser tremendously, just fixing me up after every heat, and my emotions and everything's just been all over the place, and I've just really had to let myself go and succumb to his special ability, and he's just been unbelievable for me, so thanks, Chris.
When you've been a contender in the past, you've been coming from behind, now you're starting out with the lead. How's that going to be different?
I've never been here before. I hope it gives me great confidence. I mean, just making heats was going to give me confidence this event, coming from where I was, and to have won and be coming in at 80% or 75%, it's like, you know, anything's achievable now, I feel like.
And surfing with one of your best friends out at Kira, special moment.
Yeah, most definitely. I joined the Dad Club with Ace, and he had so much good advice. He's actually played a mentor role to me, and you know, welcoming my first child and just what to expect, and all the uncontrollables that happen. And Ace has been amazing for me, and I couldn't believe that we're out there in the water together. It's probably the one competitor I've spoken to the most over the last 4 months.
Well, Julian Wilson, you are the 2018 Quiksilver Pro Champ.
Great, so stoked for you.